Radio do not own copyright for this copyrighted material, but under Section 107 United States Copyright Office, Copyright Act 1976, this video, the music and content it contains is for education and or entertainment purposes.
Family members were back in this neighborhood again today, passing out flyers they had made up in search of 18-year-old Latisha Fraizer, last seen by residents here last week.
Last Monday.
I see, and nobody's seen her since.
Nope, I haven't seen her since.
She left her job at McDonald's in Temple Hills, Maryland, came through here and disappeared. Didn't pick up her paycheck last Thursday. Didn't come home to see about her daughter, family members said.
You have a child?
Yeah. Diamond Fraizer, 3 years old.
Heard she was missing, but I haven't seen her.
You're the father of her son, her daughter?
Caroline Fraizer, the missing woman's mother, was back at 7th Police District headquarters again today, joined by a host of family members and friends frustrated that police did not classify Latisha as a critical missing person.
And that's what I feel, truthfully, that is foul play, because that's not my daughter's character at all. To not get in touch with her mother, especially to talk to her child.
We've been out here almost every day, passing flyers at night, going up and down these streets, trying to find her daughter.
The group, including an attorney friend, met with police detectives pleading their case.
As we re-interviewed her and more information was obtained, we felt that it's more important to classify this as a critical missing person and to throw the resources of a critical missing person behind it.
More help and hope for a family who desperately want to know where Latisha Fraizer is.
I mean, I've been out there every day, like I said.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to Buzzz Sweet Talk Radio's True Crime Tuesdays with your girl, Kandis. Some of you may know me by Love and Sunrays on YouTube. How's everybody doing? I hope everybody's feeling good, healthy, and safe. We're on episode 2, and this is the story of Latisha Fraizer. This one's going to be done just a little bit differently because I kind of know one of the suspects in this case, and so I want to give a little bit of backstory so that you guys can kind of feel how creepy the situation is. All right, so well over a decade ago, I had an ex-boyfriend whose best friend got his girlfriend pregnant at a very young age. I believe they were both 19 when she got pregnant. Her name is Cynthia. She didn't come around very much, but when she did, she seemed very shy and quiet for the most part. She did exhibit what some may call aggressive tendencies, meaning she was like prone to fights and stuff like that, but that energy was normally directed at her boyfriend whenever she was around us, not at us. She was one of those girls you just kind of knew not to mess with her because she was kind of crazy. Though she was quiet, she still engaged with others, and she could be very lively at times, very energetic, very talkative. But after she had her baby boy, she started coming around more often, and we all loved her baby. He was so full of life. He was very cute, and he smiled a lot. He seemed to respond when we spoke to him. He loved peekaboo. He loved certain types of music, and he would smile when certain types of music came on. He was also very quiet, and when we babysat him, he didn't cry at all, like literally at all. The only time, in fact, that he cried was when Cynthia held him, which was strange. When I first noticed this, I figured it had something to do, maybe it was like the child would grow out of it, and that maybe he just formed a greater attachment to his father than his mother, because when the father picked him up, he was fine. While that is unusual, it can happen where the child has an affinity for the father as opposed to the mother. It's very rare, but it happens. Cynthia and I had never really talked one-on-one. We were always in a group setting, but after having her baby, she started coming over to the apartment alone more often, and she, oddly started talking to me alone. Most of the conversation was about her baby and the way that he reacts to her, and she seemed very upset about this. She wondered what could she do to fix it. I don't know why she came to me, because I've never been a mother. But I figured, even though at the time our one-on-one conversations felt strange, they didn't seem that unusual to me, because I figured she just needed positive female energy. She just needed that, because she was a new mother. And I'm a very nurturing person, so I kind of chalked it up to that. I said, well, maybe that's why she's talking to me about this. I don't know. Around this time, we had started seeing news reports about a missing girl from our neighborhood. And this was nothing new. People go missing and turn up dead all the time in the infamous southeast quadrant of DC. And while people go to DC year-round to take a look at the beautiful tourist attractions, it is still one of the most dangerous places in the country. Dubbed the murder capital, DC is a place where you find burning bodies in trash cans and shooting victims abandoned in their cars on a regular basis. While watching the news, we learned about 18-year-old Latisha Fraizer, who was a single-teen mom that had gone missing. But as I said, we didn't think much of this as you become desensitized to these type of news reports over time. One day, while the local news was on the TV in the background in the living room, Cynthia, who was there with her son and his father, just stormed out of the apartment. I figured she may have been upset because she knew the missing woman that was being discussed on the news segment. I figured the girl in the picture must have been her friend or something. Little did we know she was one of the people involved in Latisha's disappearance. An imposter had been among us the entire time. So I just told you guys about that to give you guys some insight into what it was like to be around one of the suspects around the time of the murder and, after the murder and things like that. So let's get into the details of what happened to Latisha. Okay. Sorry about that. So on the day of the attack, oopsie, sorry you guys. So on the day of the attack, Latisha went to work at a local McDonald's. She was contacted at some point during her shift and told that some friends would be hanging out at 23-year-old Brian Gaither's house later that night. So right after work, she went straight over. When she arrived at the apartment, she was met with Cynthia Proctor, who was 20 at the time. Sorry, let me go back. She was met with Cynthia Proctor, Lawrence Hassan, whose age was unknown to me at the time, but I found out that he was actually 22, I believe, 22 or 21 at the time of the attack. Johnny Sweet, who was 16, Brian Gaither, 23, Anika Nelson, 15, and Lene Bell, who was 16 at the time of the attack. The group of 6 began punching and kicking Latisha. She was severely injured in the attack, according to witnesses. Apparently, Johnny Sweet set her up to be attacked because she stole $900 from him. There have been conflicting accounts in the neighborhood about this. Some say she didn't work or earn money. That he didn't work or earn any money. So he didn't even sell drugs or anything in the neighborhood. He didn't have money. And I heard people literally saying this to me, that he didn't have any money at all. Other people were saying it was much less than $900. I've even heard it as low as $90. And there's no price on Latisha's life, but to be killed over $90 that no one has evidence that you actually took, it's just sickening. At some point during the attack, Latisha was bound with rope and duct tape. She also, I found, was covered. Her head was covered with a blanket. They tied a blanket around her head. After beating her, the group proceeded to put her in a bedroom closet. And while in the closet, Latisha cried out and yelled for help. She begged this group to let her out of the closet. She was in pain. She was severely injured. And she probably just wanted to go home to her baby, her 3-year-old daughter, Diamond. And they just left her in there. So tired of all the moaning and pleading from the closet that Brian was hearing from the closet, Brian Gaither opens his closet and proceeds to put Latisha in a chokehold called the sleeper. So this act was supposed to put her to sleep for just a little while. It's a very dangerous thing to do, but that's what he did. However, after some time, Brian noticed that she was not awake or making any noise. He looked in the closet and discovered Latisha's lifeless body. He checked to see if she was breathing, and she wasn't. He then realized that she was dead. Upon realizing that they may go down for murder, the group spent an unknown amount of time brainstorming ways that they could dispose of her body. I actually talked to Cynthia while she was in prison shortly after she was arrested. Shortly after she was arrested and sentenced. And she told me that it took about a day and a little over a day for them to come up with a plan to dispose of her body. So it took some time. Then they took Latisha's battered body, her and Johnny, in the bathroom and attempted to sever her limbs. That says severe, but it's supposed to say sever. Her limbs. They tried to cut her limbs. Cynthia actually told me she cut through the flesh. And she was pregnant and due to give birth the following month. So she couldn't really stomach the smell. I don't think even if she wasn't pregnant, she wouldn't be able to stomach that smell. But she wasn't able to stomach the smell. She fell sick multiple times during the process, and eventually she went to the hospital. She told me that when she returned, the body was gone. The other 5 suspects had disposed of the body in a nearby dumpster. Now, I don't know how true this is because reports say that all 6 of them disposed of the body, but she told me personally that she wasn't there when they put the body in the trash can. She also told me that they checked the dumpster multiple times, like throughout that day that they dumped it. And on the last time that they checked it, the body was gone. So the city had already come to pick up the garbage the last time that they looked in the dumpster. And her body was never to be seen again. Ever again. To this day, no one has been able to find that body. Police found that it was probably dumped in, I'm going to pause here. They found that it was probably dumped in a landfill in Virginia, and they claimed that it's too dangerous for them to go and look for it. And I'm going to get into that later. That actually infuriates me. And I'm going to get into that a little while later. But yeah. So now the family at this point, they're scared. They're scared out of their mind because Latisha, though she comes from a rough neighborhood and she goes out a lot and things like that, she always calls home. She always calls home to make sure her baby's okay and things like that. So when she didn't come home from work specifically that night, and also didn't call her family, they became worried immediately. The next day, they actually tried to file a missing persons report, but the police were not willing to go ahead and report her as a missing person because she was 18, which is considered an adult, and the law states that adults can't be put up as a missing person at least for 48 hours or something like that. And so they had to wait a little longer for her to actually be reported missing. She actually wasn't reported missing officially until about 2 days later on August 4th, 2010. And yeah, so no one had any clue what happened to her. No one had any clue what was going on. No one knew she was dead. No one knew anything. But word was going around the neighborhood. People were already talking about this. And someone must have told the family that they saw her at Brian Gaither's house. So what ends up happening at this point is the family is around the neighborhood putting up posters and everything. And they took a risk. And they decided that they were going to go over to Brian Gaither's house and confront him and see if possibly Latisha was there. And you will not believe this man when they went to his house. I have a clip here that I want you all to see of the mother going into Brian Gaither's house, checking to see if her baby is there. And I want you guys to see his reaction to this, which is so disgusting.
They put his arm.
All right, here's the clip.
Family members were out leafleting in August 2010 when 18-year-old Latisha disappeared. When Gaither put his arm around Caroline Fraizer and invited her into the apartment where days earlier others had beaten and Gaither had strangled her daughter. A neighbor unaware of that confronted him.
He let me go all through the house.
But you saying you don't know her. Come on, man. Come on. She's sitting there with y'all. She just slept in there with y'all.
She didn't sleep with me.
She might not sleep with you, but she done been in there. So it's not a thing that you don't know.
But at the same time, I'm not from around here. I think you know that. I don't really know a lot of people around here.
He said he didn't know people around there. that he wasn't from there. That's his apartment, you guys. It's his apartment. I'm not sure if it's in his name or not, or if it wasn't his name, but that was his apartment. Okay. The neighbor obviously knew immediately that he was full of it, and she wasn't having that, so she went and confronted him. So much time went by. This case went cold because the police had nothing, and of course, we didn't know at the time that Cynthia had done anything. So we're seeing her during this whole time that the police are looking for this girl, for Latisha. So 6 to 7 months go by, and finally Cynthia is arrested. And when I find out why, I can't even believe it. It blows my mind that she is part of this case that's been so, popular in our neighborhood for so long. People still were wondering where this lady went. Turned out someone had turned themselves in. Well, I really don't know if they turned themselves in, but somebody who either heard about this, went to the police, and reported it. And they gave up names. And all of those suspects, and I'm going to give you the names of those suspects now. Johnny Sweet. And he's the one that set her up. He's the one that set this up over the $900. And then Lawrence Hassan, who was 21 at the time. Brian Gaither, who was 22 at the time. Anika Nelson, who was 15 at the time. And Lene Bell, who was 16 at the time. They were all arrested. An additional suspect named Antoine McCullough, with whom I don't know how old he was at the time, he was also arrested for tampering with evidence or trying to help dispose of the body. But even though he wasn't there at the time of the murder. Okay. So Cynthia was arrested in February. She pled guilty on July 2011. And Lawrence also pled guilty that same year in October. The rest of the suspects also pled guilty that same year. Cynthia was charged with second-degree murder, kidnapping, and conspiracy to commit evidence tampering on Friday, May 17, 2013. And she was sentenced to 21 years in prison. Lawrence, who got the same charges, was sentenced to 18 years. All right. So let me look here. Hold on a second. All right. So Lene, and I'm really blown away by these charges and the sentencing because it says a lot about Cynthia's involvement in this whole thing. The fact that she got 21 years. As opposed to Lene Bell, who was 19 at the time of her sentencing. And she was, let me pause here for a second. She was sentenced to 3 years. She was sentenced to only 3 years. And her jail time was suspended. And she was ordered to serve out her time with 2 years of probation. Anika, I could not find any. I know that she pled guilty, but no matter how much I looked, I could not find her sentencing anywhere. I don't know why. It's possible that she was protected due to her age at the time, but you would think, because she was sentenced when she was 18. She was arrested when she was 15. Sentenced when she was 18. You would think that by now I would be able to find that information. Maybe I didn't look hard enough. I don't know. But I have not been able to find it anywhere. So I think I stated this already, but Lawrence was sentenced. He was 24 at the time of his sentencing. He was sentenced to 18 years in prison. Upon Cynthia and Lawrence's completion of their time, they will also be placed on 5 years of supervised probation. All right. So, yeah. So considering that the other parties involved got lesser times, Cynthia has the second longest sentence ever, right? But Johnny, who was the last to be sentenced in July 2013, he got the most, which was 52 years. He tried to fight against this. He stated that he was not the one who killed her, that he did fight her and hit her. By the way, it's very weird to me that Anika, the youngest of the group, was the first to punch. I think I forgot to mention that. She was the first to place hands on the victim, on Latisha. And there's still no information about her at all, anywhere. But Johnny, who set this whole thing up, he got 52 years, and he tried to actually, he pled guilty, then he tried to withdraw it. But of course that wasn't going to fly, because if it weren't for him, Latisha would still be alive. It's possible that he didn't kill her because she was very much alive before the chokehold, and it's pretty clear based on the story that the chokehold is probably what ended her life, but there's no proof, there's no way to prove that without a body. So unfortunately, well, actually, fortunately, I'm happy about this because he deserves it. He got life, basically. 52 years. Well, I don't know. It might not be life for him because when he was arrested, he was only, let me look again. He was only 16. I don't know. 52 years. He's going to be pretty old when he gets out. So he basically got life. So yeah, and it's what he absolutely deserves. So some reports came out after he got sentenced. His statement and everything about the whole thing, the apology to the family came out. And I want you guys to hear this. I have a clip of it here. I don't know how I feel. I don't know if this is genuine or not. I have no idea. But apparently he poured his heart out in the courtroom.
3 years ago, Latisha Fraizer disappeared. Now the only person to go on trial for her murder received a sentence.
Fraizer was killed by a group of people, but her body was never recovered. D.C. Bureau Chief Sam Ford joins us with what the ringleader of that group had to say during his sentencing today. Sam?
Atria, August 2nd, 2010, 16-year-old Johnny Sweet and others attacked and killed Latisha Fraizer, an 18-year-old single mother. Today, Sweet's attorney begged for mercy, saying that at age 12, he and his now-deceased mother used to drink alcohol together. He did not have a good upbringing, but the judge gave little consideration to that and sentenced the now 19-year-old to 52 years in prison. Latisha Fraizer was coming home from her job at McDonald's when lured into this apartment in Southeast, and 6 of her so-called friends jumped her, beat and strangled her to death, threw her body in a dumpster. Because Johnny Sweet, now age 19, sentenced today, claimed she had stolen money from him.
Stomping her out. And then when I saw her stomping her out, they pulled me away from her.
Her family was in court today, so was his.
Like I said, it's just a nightmare you just can't wake up from.
The others involved already pleaded guilty and were sentenced to between 18 and 32 years. After going to trial and losing, Johnny Sweet said today, "I ain't gonna sugarcoat it. I had a part in it. A life was taken due to a careless decision. Hopefully someday y'all can forgive me. If y'all don't, I can understand it." For Latisha Fraizer's family, poor, Mother Caroline sometimes homeless, for 3 years they'd pressured police, posted leaflets for their daughter's whereabouts, and when the case broke, went to every hearing and trial. Judge Russell Kanan today praised what he called their graciousness throughout the process. The father, Barry Campbell, put it this way.
You know, we had to keep going on for her. You know, we couldn't just let her spirit die because she's not here to speak out to what happened to her, so we had to be that unspoken voice for her.
Tomorrow, they're returning to the apartment on Trenton Place where it happened. They are going back to hold a vigil at that apartment, which would mark 3 years exactly since Latisha Fraizer was killed there. Her daughter Diamond is now 6 years old. Her body still has not been found, believed to be in a landfill near Richmond, Virginia. Authorities say it is too dangerous to try to retrieve her remains. Reporting live from D.C. Superior Court, Sam Ford, ABC 7 News.
All right, so can we just have a moment to appreciate Sam Ford from ABC 7 in Washington, D.C.? He covered this story the whole time for years. And I just want to thank him for putting out that information for everybody. So yeah, you heard it. That was his so-called apology. I'm not buying it. I don't think any of these people valued her life in any way, like not even after the fact, which is crazy. It's so crazy. But like I said, in this community, we see stuff like this all the time. We hear stuff like this all the time, and they're completely desensitized. In talking to Cynthia, though, I must say she sounded very sympathetic. And I mean, we talked a lot while she was in prison. When she first went into prison, I don't know why she chose to talk to me. Again, I have no idea. But she was very sympathetic and regretful. It's just a really sad situation all around. The worst part is her body has never been found, and DC police have not made the effort to go into the landfill to find it, which they say they can't do it because it's dangerous, but I call bull on that. I've been into true crime long enough to know that it's possible. There have been plenty of other cases, especially of people of other backgrounds. Plenty of other cases where the body was found in a landfill even years after the murder. Okay? So there's really no excuse. It's probably lack of financial resources, if anything, or it could be flat out laziness, because I know firsthand that DC police can be very lazy, and they're probably one of the laziest police departments in the whole country. But the family's very upset about this, and even one of the Johnny, one of the suspects, the main suspect, he was upset about this because he felt that finding her body and performing an autopsy could prove that it was the chokehold which killed her and not the physical assault. Well, it really don't matter, Johnny. Sorry. I hope you never see the light of day. I hope you pass in prison because you took a light from this world. You took a beautiful light out of this world. She didn't deserve it. And you didn't have no $900. I believe the hood when they say he ain't have $900 like that. So you lied. And you know what? I have an article here I want to read about this. Hold on one second. Because I was thinking this anyway based on what I was hearing around the neighborhood. But then an article confirms it by saying that they believe I believe it was Hassan's lawyer, Lawrence Hassan's lawyer, who says they believe that this was a matter of jealousy, that she had a job because she hung around them every day, riff-raffing with them, you know, and she stopped. And she probably was hanging around people who had money, you know, had jobs too, maybe her coworkers, and stopped really hanging with them. And they got jealous, I think, and beat her up because of this, which is really sad, really sad. I just wish it had ended there and not with her losing her life. Now, let me see. I'm not going to read this whole article. Let me see if I can find that particular part. Oh, and then I want to point out that one of the witnesses who testified, I'm not sure which one it was. It was between Anika and Lene. I think it was Lene. She gave her account of what happened. I'm going to actually read that first. All right. Okay, so let me go up here. So the article talks a little bit about Johnny Sweet. Okay. It was at Sweet's house prosecutors argued that Fraizer disappeared from. That's not what I heard. It was Brian's house. A lot of reports have mixed up information too. It was actually Brian's house. At that time, Sweet's mother was hospitalized, and he used the house as a party house. All right, so that gives you an idea of what was going on there. People would often visit for sex, drinking, and video games, which I can believe, but they weren't there that day. They were at Brian's house. Lene Bell, because the reason why I say this is because the neighbor recognized Brian as a neighbor. She went over to Brian as a neighbor. The mother went inside Brian's house to look for her daughter. So it was Brian's house where this all happened, even though reports may say Sweet. All right, so Lene Bell, who pleaded guilty to kidnapping in connection with the case, testified Tuesday that around 3 p.m. on the day of Fraizer's beating, Sweet knocked on her front door and told her to come over to his house where everyone was chilling, listening to music. Oh, okay, so maybe it was Sweet's house. Who knows? On the stand, Bell said that she waited about 15 minutes before going over to Sweet's house, and when she got there, the other co-defendants were all waiting in the back room. Wow. Belle said that after a few minutes in the bedroom, Sweet told her that he wanted her to beat up a girl who had stolen a stack of money from him, which is a daggone lie. Belle testified that she didn't take Sweet's request seriously at first, and he never told her the name of the alleged thief. A few minutes later, Sweet went to the front door and returned to the bedroom with his arm around Fraser's neck as if they were friends, Belle said. Still dressed in her McDonald's uniform, Fraser sat in a chair and then Sweet closed the bedroom door and said, "Ain't nobody about to leave." Ugh. Anika Nelson then threw the first punch, Belle told the court. Belle said that Fraser looked surprised and asked, "What is going on?" No one answered. Nelson just kept punching. Then Proctor joined the beating. That's Cynthia. Nelson and Proctor continued throwing punches while Fraser stood in the corner, covering her face with her arms, Belle said. Then Sweet urged Belle to join in. "I didn't know this was going to happen," Belle testified. "It was like a peer pressure thing." Belle said that after a few minutes of punching Fraser, she pushed the other two women away and told them to stop because Fraser had done nothing to them and she was not defending herself. Belle testified that Sweet then hit Fraser too many times to count. He beat her to the floor and then started stomping on her as if he was crushing a soda can. Oh my God. A few minutes later, Gaither said, "It's my turn." And he too began stomping on Fraser, Belle said. Belle said that Sweet then went to the bathroom and retrieved a set of brass knuckles with an extended knife and said, "I'ma kill this B word." As Belle was leaving the house, she heard Sweet say, "I need something to tie this B up with." Later that evening, Belle briefly went back to Sweet's home, but she didn't ask what happened to Fraser. "I didn't want to know," she told jurors. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. And I've read that before, but it's just, ugh. I think she thought that was Sweet's house. That actually wasn't his house. That was Brian's house. All right, so that's just so crazy. That's just so crazy. Mm, 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 mm. So this other guy, Antoine McCullough, he was sentenced to 2 years probation for assisting in hiding Latisha Fraizer's body, and he's out today, working, living his life just like anybody else. He attempted to cut the body and he couldn't do it. So now this body is somewhere in a Virginia landfill. Family is upset. And I'm going to watch a clip here, last little news clip, of the family's plea to police for them to come on and just look for the body. At this point, I do think it's pointless. It's been over a decade. It's been 12 years. So her body, unfortunately, will never be found, and her family will never get to lay her to rest, which is so sad. It's just so sad. You know, her mom, I don't know if they got a burial spot for her, but considering how impoverished they are and poor they are, I'm pretty sure they can't afford to get a tombstone with no body. Like, they can't afford to just do that for no reason. So the child doesn't even have a place to visit their mother in the future. Like, it's just crazy. This is just so sad. It's so sad. And you could tell that the girl really meant no harm to anybody. She had a job. I don't believe she stole anything from him. I don't even believe he had it like that. And let me see if I can find this part in this article. Hold on one second. Okay, I made a mistake. Let me see. All right. Let's see here. Okay. All right. So let's read some of what Hassan said. This is Lawrence Hassan. Okay. The title of this article is "It Wasn't Supposed to Go Down Like This," Hassan says at sentencing for Latisha Fraizer death. Okay. All right. So I'm going to skip to where he starts talking. He says, "I extremely apologize. If I could change the past, I would. It truly hurts. It wasn't supposed to go down like this. I really want you all to forgive me. I take full responsibility for my actions." All right. Okay. There was a part where Hassan's lawyer was speaking to the fact that there was some degree of jealousy, but I'm not saying it in this article now. I'm sorry, I have so many articles open regarding this. I've been reading them all day. But yeah, forget it. I mean, Hassan's lawyer basically thinks the same thing that I think, that there was a degree of jealousy of the fact that she wasn't really hanging out with the group anymore. She wasn't really coming over anymore. She was working, earning her own money. She was a sweethearted girl. And so she was also an easy target for this sort of thing, unfortunately. And it truly is sad. My only wish in this whole thing is that the family had gotten her body and been able to lay her to rest and get closure. And unfortunately, they'll never have that. So I'm going to skip ahead here to the video clip of the family discussing this.
Here, a landfill outside Richmond, Virginia, mixed in with trash from a dumpster. To be sure, a lawyer for one of the men charged wanted Washington police to start digging. Latisha's family said it was only fair.
You'll have somebody, like you said, in Ashana Levy, that's in the political world and in the big world of, politics and everything. And then you have the Latisha Fraizers that's in the small world, helping people as far as in McDonald's or working the metro or doing the blue-collar workers, the blue-collar people. They looked upon in a different light.
After all, D.C. police led an exhaustive search for intern Chandra Levy, scouring woods. Her remains eventually found. But there would be no search for Latisha Fraizer. A judge said police did not have to dig. The department said a landfill search would be too difficult, take too long, all for a body they had little hope of ever locating.
I just want her body to be found.
Carolyn Fraizer is Latisha's mother.
That's my baby. It means a lot.
Latisha Fraizer loved nicknames.
Pooh was her nickname. I was daddy, so that was daddy's little Pooh.
It is these memories that live on, painted on t-shirts, printed on buttons, with no burial site, no headstone. It is all one family has to remember a daughter. Lee Powell, The Associated Press, Laurel, Maryland.
Oh my God, that's so heart-wrenching. That's so sad. Oh God. But I just want to say, hopefully, I hope that this girl, before she took her last breath, was able to ask God for the forgiveness of all her sins, and that she is with him right now. That's my hope. And I hope that if I make it, I get to see her lovely face in the next life. I also want to say that this is a common thing in DC, throwing particularly Black women in the trash can. And I can't even believe this. It's, hi, Mom. Hey. I can't even believe how common this is. Dead or alive, they have been throwing Black women in trash cans in DC for a while. And I don't understand what their problem is, and this is a Black men throwing them in trash cans. I'm not understanding what that is all about. I just need it to stop. I need you to leave these women alone. If someone steals some money from you, report it missing. If it's drug money, that's what the hell you get. Even though what's going to happen is what's going to happen anyway. If it's drug money, people, they're going to kill for that. But someone supposedly takes some money from you, just report it to the police. Don't kill the person. Don't even assault them, because that person gonna go right to the police and report you. Okay, Mother, I don't have much time here. This video's about to cut off. You lost track of time. Seems like everybody did. No one's here, but they'll get the recording after the fact. I'm on stream on your channel and on Buzzz Tweet's channel and on Twitch. So I'm getting ready to head out. This story will be in my heart for the rest of my life. Out of all the stories I've heard in DC, this one right here will be in my heart for the rest of my life. I'm so sorry for what happened to you, Latisha. I'm so sorry.